Here, what do you make of this law that's now in effect?
This is absolutely terrifying development. And I think there are a few important points here. Firstly, this development is a clear indication of how the regime is becoming increasingly weak and isolated. These new laws signal extreme fear within the regime. It's a well-known trend that the regime cracks down internally when they feel at risk or compromised. Brute force and repression is how they've always done it, and that's how they've held on to power for the last half a century. And secondly, as an activist, it's gut-wrenching that we have to keep saying, "We told you so," to the international community, to foreign governments. For example, when there was falsehoods about morality police being disbanded, when the new president Pezeshkian was being referred to as a reformist, it's all a falsehood, all a falsity, one after another, and now look where we are. Potential death penalties or even execution in regards to these new hijab and chastity laws.
So, Parmida, let's talk about this because, as you mentioned, this is something that activists such as yourself have been warning against for quite some time. Do you think that we've seen protests against, morality laws in previous iterations of things like this? Do you think we're going to see even bigger protests now because of this?
I believe so. There's no doubt that the brave women of Iran will continue their acts of defiance against these barbaric, oppressive, and life-threatening laws. And Iranian women have refused to back down. They've known the risks and have continued to show time after time utmost bravery and courage, but they cannot do it alone.
Let's talk about what's at stake here, because as these protests grow in size, in visibility, how harsh are the punishments, do you think, going to get?
I mean, we've seen what happened with the Masa Amini movements and movements before that. We know how this regime cracks down. And now more than ever, we need the support of the international community and foreign governments. How far will we allow this regime to go without consequence? There's an imbalance in the scales as the brave people inside the country are fighting tooth and nail. We need foreign governments to support their efforts and weaken the stronghold of this regime. No more appeasement policies, no more rolling out the red carpets. This regime will never be reformed.
Let's talk about what the situation is right there. How much protection do women have in Iran right now?
There are no safeguards. This is a regime that will stop at nothing. And as I said, brute repression and force has been the way that they've done this. And unfortunately, when it comes to, for example, these new chastity laws, basically anyone whose conduct in regards to these new laws are considered by the authorities as corruption on earth could be sentenced to death. And this corruption on earth is a very ambiguous label. As we've seen in the past, if they really want to make an example of someone, they have a free pass to do so in their sham trials, in their kangaroo courts, where there's no due process, where citizens may not even have access to a lawyer, and sometimes had 10 minutes to defend themselves against a death penalty, and much worse, forced to confess to crimes they didn't even commit.